Let's go back. The year is 1922. We're in Bavaria, deep in the snow-covered forests, miles from anywhere you'd call a town. There's a single isolated farm here called Hinterkaifeck. The name itself basically means behind the back of beyond. It's a place cut off from the world, a place where secrets can fester. And on this farm, those secrets are about to curdle into a nightmare.
So, who lives out here in the middle of nowhere? 6 people. You've got the family patriarch, Andreas Gruber, 63 years old and known for being a real tyrant. His wife, Cecilia, much older at 72, mostly keeps to herself. Then there's their widowed daughter, Victoria, age 35, who's the subject of some pretty dark town gossip. She has 2 kids, little Cecilia, who's 7, and a toddler, Josef, who's only 2. And rounding out the household is the brand new maid, Maria Baumgartner. She doesn't know it yet, but she just accepted the last job of her life.
On the last day of March 1922, they all just disappear. For 4 straight days, nothing. The farm goes completely quiet. Mail starts piling up, young Cecilia doesn't show up for school, and on Sunday, the family's usual spot at church, it's empty. It's like the 6 of them just, well, vanished off the face of the earth.
By Tuesday, April 4th, that silence is no longer just strange, it's heavy, you know? The neighbors are getting worried. Sure, the Grubers kept to themselves, but this felt different. This wasn't isolation. It was an absence, a complete void where the sounds and routines of a working farm should be. And that void was starting to feel terrifying.
Think about the signs piling up. The little girl has missed school for days. No explanation. The whole family, who never missed church, wasn't there on Sunday. That's a huge red flag. The postman says Saturday's mail is still sitting right where he left it. The place is a ghost town. So, their neighbor, a man named Lawrence Schlittenbauer, finally says, "That's it, something's wrong." He gets a couple of other guys, and they head over to find out what's going on.
When they get there, the whole place is locked up tight. The main gate to the courtyard is bolted. They go to the front door of the house. It's locked too. Everything is sealed, but then they hear it. Inside the barn, the cattle are moaning, restless. And from inside the house, the family dog is barking its head off. Someone or something is in there with them.
The barn seems like the only way in. The door's barred, but they're not asking for permission anymore. They break it down. And just like that, they step from the bright afternoon sun into total darkness. The air in there is stale, thick with the smell of hay and fear. They move slow, letting their eyes adjust, calling out, but getting no answer.
As they're walking through the gloom, one of the men steps on something soft but solid under the straw. He kicks at it, thinking it's a piece of equipment. He looks down, and poking out of the hay is a hand, a human hand. In a panic, they start throwing the hay aside, and the mystery of the silent farm, it instantly becomes a massacre. It isn't just one body, it's 4, stacked on top of each other.
But here's the thing you have to understand. That horrifying discovery in the barn, that wasn't the beginning of the story. It was the end. To really get what happened here, you have to rewind. Because for weeks, the farm itself was trying to warn them. The family was being watched, they were being hunted, and they knew it.
So these are the 6 people whose lives were stolen. Andreas and Cecilia Gruber, their daughter Victoria and her 2 children, Cecilia and Josef, and the new maid, Maria. Now this family had money. They were actually pretty wealthy for the area, but they were completely isolated, treated like outcasts. And there was a reason why. A dark secret everyone knew about. A court had actually convicted the patriarch, Andreas, for incest with his own daughter, Victoria. That secret hung over the farm like a storm cloud. The terror started small. Months before, the family's maid quit in a panic. Then, just weeks before the murders, things got worse. A newspaper from Munich, one they didn't subscribe to, just showed up on the farm. Then a set of house keys went missing. And then came the most chilling sign of all. Andreas found a set of footprints in the fresh snow, leading out of the dense forest right to the farmhouse, but there were no footprints leading away. And that very same night, they heard footsteps from the attic.
Now, Let's break that down. The maid who quit said the house was haunted, but she also said local men were harassing her at night. The strange newspaper? That meant someone from outside their small world was watching them. The missing keys? Well, that meant a killer didn't need to break in. They could just walk right through the front door. Andreas grabbed a lantern and searched that attic, but he found nothing. He told his neighbors all about it. He knew someone was there, but for some reason, he never called the police.
And into all this growing dread walks 44-year-old Maria Baumgartner. It's Friday afternoon, March 31st. Her sister walks with her all the way to that lonely farm to make sure she gets there okay. Her sister would later say that as she was leaving, Maria called out to her one last time, after they'd already said their goodbyes. It was an odd, unsettling moment, and it was the last time anyone saw the family alive.
When police finally got to the farm, they were looking at a scene of pure butchery. But it wasn't chaotic. It was methodical. And they came up with a theory for how one person could do this. The theory was called luring. See, they tested it. If you scream your lungs out inside that barn, you can't hear a thing from the house. The killer, they believed, knew this. They didn't attack the family head-on. They tricked them. They drew them out, one by one, into a soundproof kill room.
So, here's how investigators think it happened. First, Andreas, the man of the house, is probably lured into the barn. Maybe he heard a noise with the animals. He's struck down from behind with the family's own mattock. When he doesn't come back, his wife, Kazilia, goes looking for him. She meets the same end. Then Victoria, their daughter. And then her 7-year-old child, Kazilia, follows her mother into the barn and to her death. With the 4 of them dead, the killer calmly walks into the house. He kills 2-year-old Joseph in his crib, and then he goes to the maid's room and kills Maria, who had only been on the farm for a few hours.
In a single night, 6 people, an entire family spanning 3 generations, plus a stranger who is just in the wrong place at the worst possible time. All wiped out.
And this is where the story goes from a horrific murder case to something else entirely. Something deeply, deeply disturbing. The killer has done it. They've murdered everyone. So what's the next move? You run. You get as far away as possible, right? But that's not what happened here. The killer didn't run. They stayed. For the next 3 days, the killer lived there. They lived in that house with the bodies of their victims just outside in the barn and in the bedrooms. Neighbors saw smoke coming from the chimney. Someone was keeping the fire warm. The farm animals, they were taken care of. The cows were milked. The dog was fed. Someone had even been eating food from the kitchen. The killer didn't just hide out. They made themselves at home. They took over the family's life, all while their 6 victims lay dead just feet away. When the bodies were finally discovered and the police from Munich showed up, the scene was a complete disaster. Dozens of people from the nearby villages had just walked all over the property. They'd gone through the house, they'd moved the bodies, they'd touched everything. Some of them had even started cooking themselves meals in the kitchen while they waited. Any evidence that might have existed was basically gone. The crime scene was destroyed.
The lead detective pretty much said it all. He wrote that any clue that could have possibly solved the case was trampled on, picked up, or just carried away by onlookers. From the very first moment, any real chance of finding the killer was probably zero. It was a catastrophic failure before the investigation even had a chance to start.
With no leads, no evidence, and no real motive, the police got desperate. And when I say desperate, I mean they went to a place that is just bizarre. After the autopsies were done, the coroner actually removed the heads from all 6 bodies. The 6 skulls were then packed up and sent to Munich to be examined by psychics. They were hoping that maybe the paranormal could give them a clue that the real world couldn't. The police did have suspects, though, and their number 1 was Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor who found the bodies. He'd had an affair with Victoria, and many believed he was the father of her son, Josef. Plus, he acted really strangely at the crime scene, moving bodies around before anyone else got there. He had a motive. But he also had severe asthma. His own family said there was no way he was physically capable of such a brutal, sustained attack. Then there was the popular ghost story.
The theory was that Victoria's husband, Carl Gabriel, who had supposedly died in World War I, had actually survived. He came home, found his wife had another man's child, and killed everyone in a jealous rage. It's a heck of a story, but that's all it was. Official military records were clear. He was killed in action back in 1914. Another soldier even swore he saw his dead body on the battlefield.
And the list of suspects just kept growing. The police looked at some local thieves who had bothered the old maid. They had alibis. They looked at Carl Gabriel's family, since they would inherit the farm. They even looked at an old farmhand who'd once been caught hiding in the family's attic, proving someone could hide there. But every single lead went cold. They questioned over 100 people. Not one was ever charged with a crime.
A year later, in 1923, they decided to just tear the whole farm down. The place was cursed, a monument to the massacre. And as the demolition crew was ripping the place apart, they found something. Hidden away in the attic was the murder weapon, the family's own mattock, still crusted with blood and hair. It had been right there over everyone's heads the entire time.
And what about those 6 skulls, the ones sent to the psychics in Munich? Well, they never offered up any secrets. They were eventually stored in a government building. But during World War II, Allied bombs hit the city. The building was damaged, and in the chaos, the skulls were lost. They were never seen again, adding one last surreal twist to an already unbelievable story.
So after more than a century, after hundreds of interviews, countless theories, and decades of suspicion, the number of people who have ever been brought to justice for the slaughter at Hinterkaifeck is 0. We're left with the exact same questions they had in 1922. Who was the man who left those one-way tracks in the snow? Who was it that lived in their attic, listening to them breathe, waiting for the right moment? Who could commit such an awful crime and then stay to feed the cows? The real horror of Hinterkaifeck isn't just that it's unsolved, it's the killer, a phantom who walked out of the forest, became a monster, and then just melted back into history. Forever.